response to the invitations. We found this is a total lie. It's a false statement. In fact, there was a three-page positive reply was sent through Foreign Secretary Masood bin Momen on July 29. And it was mentioned also about this reply in the very popular newspaper. Prothom Alo is English version with the title Government Response to UNHRC Chief's Letter. And this was in local newspaper, and the letter was sent. It was a three-page letter, and this letter talked all about the current situation, and also it acknowledges Mr. Turk's letter, and it writes, Excellency, I write in response to your letter dated 23rd July 2024, addressed to our Honorable Prime Minister. We share and appreciate your concerns over the recent events in Bangladesh and would like to assure you that normalcy is being quickly restored through the collective efforts of the government and the people. He further wrote, the movement waged by students of certain public universities seeking reforms of public service quota system was carried out peacefully without any disruption or impediment for 3 weeks at a stretch. During this time, the government made efforts to engage with the self-assigned coordinators of the movement and called upon students to wait for the judicial process before the appellate division of the Supreme Court to be exhausted so that the quota reform issue could be resolved without the need for interference by the executive. In parallel, the government and the law enforcement agencies ensured that all protests, sit-ins, rallies staged by the students could take place in a safe and secure environment. So this was a very nice letter replied to him, giving the detail of the situation and government's efforts to calm the situation and control the situation and listen to the students' demand and ensure that they will be satisfied. And even with this letter, Mr. Tut, and in the first para of the report, he denies that he did not receive this letter. So this is a question of credibility of the whole report. When he lied at the very beginning of the report, the rest of the report is very similar. On July 16th, 6 people were killed in Dhaka and Chittagong. On July 18, the government formed a commission of inquiry headed by Justice Khandukar Dilruzzaman of the High Court Division of the Supreme Court to submit a report within 30 working days. The High Commission's report omitted these important details. Sheikh Hasina said, I want everything to be investigated because it needs to be found out what happened and how this happened. I have appealed to the United Nations to send their experts in any other, and if any other country wants, they can send their expert too. This was her open statement in the media. She was seeking the UN and other international organizations' cooperation for fair and proper investigation into the matter. And this was published on 31st July in the Dhaka Tribune newspaper. So these are all open in newspaper, and still today people can browse and see those news, and yet they started with a lie. Now on para 15 and 18, in accordance with its standard methodology, the OHCHR shared this report prior to publication with the interim government for its comments regarding any factual errors or inaccuracies and integrated relevant comments received. Now you see it in the statement in that para 18, it admits that it had communicated with the interim government before it published it, and it integrated the relevant comments. That means inside this report, they have taken comments from the interim governments or probably modified whatever the interim government wanted them to write. This is clearly evident in this statement. In 15, the report acknowledges that the manner in which they have established the facts is not sufficient to convict anyone. Their findings may warrant further investigation by the appropriate criminal justice authority in the future. The manner in which they have established the facts is not sufficient is itself a proof of the weakness of the report. So they have themselves admitted that it is not sufficient the way they have investigated and found these facts. Para 16 and 17, before publishing the report, was sent to the interim government for their approval or comments. Those comments are also added in this report. That is, it is natural that the interim government also has its opinions here. In para 101 and 103, there was some discussions about the incident of 16 July when a university student known as Abu Said was killed in a procession. Apparently, the police was aiming at him with shotguns, and it was reported in the newspapers that these shotguns had rubber bullets. They were not metal bullets. And yet, the report mentions that he was wounded by metal bullets and he was killed by police from gunfire. Uh, this was not a true uh, picture given by this report. Uh, there are other reports in newspapers and evidence from uh, people who were in the incident area. They saw a big wound in the neck of that uh, Abu Said, and this was by some heavy uh, wooden weapon used, or some stone was thrown, and that injury was there, and that one probably also the main reason for his death. And the forensic report also reported that his death was also from uh, an injury in his head. So the report really uh, claims different things to frame that he was killed by the police and implicate the uh, Awami League government for these atrocities. Over reliance of unverified and second-hand information. The report reportedly concedes that many accounts were unverified, second-hand, and based on limited access. This we can see on para 229 to 40. This seriously undermines the credibility of the report. The report presents strong causal claims, such that violent mob engaged in serious acts of revenge violence, or that certain political groups were involved, without specifying evidentiary standards of differentiating between verified and alleged incidents or perpetrators. Even the general population of Bangladesh knows the identity of those certain political groups. Those are the leaders and activists of BNP, Jamaat Islami, their armed factions, and other Islamic fundamentalists. In other words, Professor Yunus is supporters of July conspiracy, the OHCHR intentionally or under pressure from Yunus government or through Yunus government or through friendly compromise with Professor Yunus sought to obscure the identity of those political entities. This represents serious flaw in a report of such importance by an organization of this stature. Uh, in other paras, we find the one-sided portrayal and indemnifying crimes against humanity. The High Commissions consciously sought to normalize Professor Yunus and his supporters' notion of revenge attack, an attempt to indemnify crimes by describing it as revenge violence, as though they were inevitable and beyond the control of state. In doing so, the report paid little attention to the grave human rights violations committed by Professor Yunus and his supporters, killings, ransoms, arsons, property damage, extortions, sexual violence, and other abuses. This serious flaw undermines the credibility of the UN body itself. By underestimating the suffering of a large section of the population and failing to analyze the state's responsibility to protect its citizens, the High Commission risks creating a false moral equivalence between state repression and mob retribution. The report even failed to mention that unjustified and unauthorized indemnity orders issued by the interim government on 14 October 2024. Now look into para 245. I'm touching just randomly some of the paragraphs just to show how the report is biased or uh, totally uh, one-sided. Paragraph 245 claims that between 1st July and 5th August 2024, the High Commission was unable to ascertain any genuine efforts by the authorities to investigate or ensure accountability for serious violations committed by security forces and Awami League supporters. Yet, paragraph 247 acknowledges that the then government established a judicial inquiry committee composed of three High Court division judges. The committee initially formed on 18 July and later expanded to three judges on 1st August 2024. under the leadership of Justice Khandukar Dilur-Zaman, with Justice K.M. Jahid Sarwar and Muhammad Shaukat Ali Chowdhury, was officially tasked to investigate the violence within a period of 45 working days. While the report concedes this fact, it fails to discuss the turbulent equivalent that impeded the committee's operations. The weeks following the protest were marked by curfews, security lockdowns, clashes which severely restricted access to affected districts such as Rangpur and Dhaka, so they hindered their operational barriers. The report unfairly equates the absence of immediate result within the short period. In paragraph 249 to 51, the report continues a pattern of asymmetric treatment of violence, emphasizing alleged abuses by state and affiliated actors while giving limited attention to protester-led violence or incidents in which police, journalists, or Awami League supporters were harmed. Notably, Bangladesh police reported that at least 44 officers were killed during the protest, a figure later confirmed in the High Commission's own summary of findings. Yet this fact is absent from this section of the report. This omission risks presenting a one-sided portrayal of accountability. Para 265 notes the ratification of the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance and the inclusion of enforced disappearance as crime under the amended International Crime Act of 1973. It also records the creation of a commission of inquiry that verified 758 disappearance cases and recommended dissolving the Rapid Action Battalion. These are significant reforms aimed at addressing long-standing human rights concerns, yet the Commission discusses them in a manner that conveys skepticism rather than acknowledgement. This inconsistency reveals a selective validation where evidence of accountability is treated about while evidence of wrongdoing is amplified without equal. There are 300 to 308 of the report's final segment moves from flawed fact-finding to sweeping policy